get in the elevator and go up back to your house. However, the owner of the 15th floor apartment says, that's private property. You're trespassing. Get off my flagpole. And if you get off your flagpole and you let go, well, you're going to die. Now, the usual way that this is approached is, well, should you let go? But that's not the proper answer, proper question to pose to a libertarian. The proper answer to pose to a libertarian is, suppose she shoots you for trespassing. Is she a rights violator? And this is an attack on libertarianism because our hearts go out to the poor guy who's holding on to a flagpole. He's innocent. He means no harm, but he's a trespasser. And my view is if she shoots him, she's not a murderer. She's defending her private property. And it really sounds horrible. All I can say to alleviate this is that more people will die, paradoxically, if we denigrate private property rights than if this one guy dies. And this one guy is just a totally made-up guy. I don't think that there's ever been such an example like this. So that would be my answer. We want to stick to libertarian principle, and libertarian principle says it's her flagpole. I mean, you know, to make it nicer from her point of view, she might have been raped a week ago by a guy who looks like this guy. And she's scared of him, and she doesn't want to let him into her apartment. And she has every right to shoot him to make him not trespass. Another very similar, well, not exactly similar, but with the same objection is a thing called that movie, what was it? Dr. Strangelove. Great movie. If you haven't seen Dr. Strangelove, you're a rotten kid. You should see Dr. Strangelove. It's a great movie. And what happens is that unless a telephone call is made, and there were no cell phones in those days, unless a telephone call is made, there's going to be a thermonuclear exchange between Russia and the United States, and everyone's going to die. So you got to make that phone call. However, nobody has a dime, and in those days, you needed a dime to make a phone call on this phone box. However, there's a Coke machine right there, and the Coke machine's got plenty of change and plenty of dimes, and somebody's about to shoot the Coke machine and get the dime and save the world. But somebody else says, wait, you can't do that. That's private property. So again, what we're trying to do here, or what our critics are trying to do, is, you see, what we want is we want deontologically pure libertarianism, and we also want prosperity, and we don't want to be a suicide pact. So how do we get out of this? The way we get out of this is the guy shoots the Coke machine, and then he pays a penalty for shooting the Coke machine, whatever that penalty is. Got to fix the machine, or whatever it is. So that would be the way, I think, a more sophisticated way of looking at libertarianism is not that thou shalt never violate private property rights. It's rather, if you do, you get punished. So libertarianism is really a theory of punishment. Okay, that's my first on my list of attacks on libertarianism that we should be well armed to be able to refute. Another controversial area in libertarianism is abortion. Now, Murray Rothbard is pro-choice, and Ron Paul is pro-life. And you can't get two people more than Murray Rothbard and Ron Paul who we could call leaders of libertarianism. And yet they're 180 degrees apart. So how do we solve this one? Well, I think both of them are wrong. And I have a book out on this and many articles, and I call it evictionism. And the way I look at the matter is, I look at the matter, here's a 12-year-old girl. She's walking down the street, she gets grabbed, she gets raped, and she gets impregnated. And now there's a person growing inside of her. In my view, I side with the pro-life people here. I believe that life starts with a fertilized egg. And now it's not like an appendix, just a bunch of cells, or like fingernails, a bunch of cells. The alternative is that life starts with birth. I think that's crazy. because 15 minutes before birth and 15 minutes after birth, the baby is the same as you and I are 15 minutes ago and 15 minutes from now. So I think birth is just a change of address from being inside of a person, the mother, to being outside of a person. I don't think that uh, am I okay? Should I keep going? I'm okay. Okay, so I'll keep going. I thought somebody had something to say.
No.
Okay, so life begins with the fertilized egg, but we believe in private property rights. And private property rights means that this little girl, 12 years old, she owns her body. So what do we say about the fetus, this human being, a very young human being, fertilized egg, very young human being? What do we say about him? And I want to call him it. Sometimes I call the baby it, and I have to correct myself. It's a person, he. Well, we say he's a trespasser because he's an innocent trespasser. God knows. I mean, you can't be more innocent than a two-stage, two-celled person. He's totally innocent. But he's a trespasser. He is in the side of somebody else's property. Well, when somebody's inside of somebody else's property, look, I'm now walking down the street and I inadvertently step on your lawn. And you remonstrate with me and say, hey, that's my private property. I say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know. And I get right off. Well, you can't shoot me for trespassing. I mean, that's ridiculous. But suppose I insist on staying on your lawn. Well, you can push me off. You can evict me. But to kill me, especially if I'm drunk and I'm just lying there, the point I'm trying to make is that the trespasser is innocent. And now I've been attacked because they say that trespassers can only be a rights violator or non-innocent. But look, I get you drunk and I stick you in my boat. And now, rather, I stick you in somebody else's boat, and now you're a trespasser. You're innocent. I'm the what do you call it? The person. I'm the criminal. I'm the person who drugged you or got you drunk and put you in somebody else's boat or house. So my claim is that you can evict the baby, but not kill the baby. So here, evictionism is really a compromise, but I say it's a principled libertarian compromise. What's an unprincipled compromise? You say 2 + 2 is 5. I say 2 + 2 is 7. And somebody comes along and says 2 + 2 is 6. Well, that's a compromise. But it's not a principled compromise because you can't deduce 2 + 2 = 6 from anything except wanting the compromise. Whereas I think that this is truly a compromise because in the first 6 months, the baby is not viable outside the womb. So if you evict, you kill, and now we're taking a pro-choice position, namely evictionism overlaps with pro-choice, the baby dies. However, in the last trimester, the 7th, 8th, and 9th month, the baby is viable outside the womb. And now if you evict, we're on the pro-life side because the baby lives. So, and as medical technology improves, instead of 6 months and 3 months, it'll be 5 months and 4 months, and then 4 months and 5 months. My heart is with pro-life. I like people. Some of my best friends are people. Leon Lowe is a person, and he's one of my best friends. So I'm pro-people. So if I had my druthers, I'd be pro-life. But I don't have my druthers. I want to be true to libertarian theory. And libertarian theory says that eviction is correct. Okay, the next in the batter's box, again, what I'm doing is I'm coming up with controversial libertarian issues where people disagree or where we're under attack, and I want to offer remedies so that we're not as under attack as we otherwise would be. Okay, so what's the next one? Next one is voluntary slavery. What's voluntary slavery? My son, God forbid, has a horrible disease and it'll cost $50 million to cure him. I don't have anything like 50 million. But you guys are rich. You're Bill Gates. You're very rich. And you've long wanted me to be your slave. I'll come to your plantation. I'll pick cotton. I'll give economics lessons or libertarian lessons. And we make a deal. You give my son's doctors 50 million, and I will become your slave. And we each benefit because from Austrian economics, we know that all voluntary interaction, all voluntary commercial interaction is mutually beneficial. Otherwise, it wouldn't occur. How do I gain? Because I value my son's life more than my freedom, even more than my own life, because it's legal to kill a slave. Killing a slave when slavery was legal is like killing a horse or a cow or a chicken. So I value my son's life more than my freedom. And I think most good parents value their kids' lives more than their own. You know, the mother hen during the forest fire, what she does is she sits on the chicks and she burns to death and the chicks stay alive. Well, I think that's pretty virtuous. I'm pretty virtuous. How do you gain? Well, you value my servitude more than the 50 million. This is very controversial. Virtually all libertarians reject voluntary slavery. Murray Rothbard certainly does. The only famous person that agrees with me on this is Robert Nozick. But I think it's right. And this leads to another issue called specific performance contracts. Are specific performance contracts valid? Well, this is a specific performance contract. Namely, I have to perform as a slave. Here's another one. I'm now your doctor. And I'm going to, I don't know what, fix your knee. And what I do is I give you a general anesthetic, and right in the middle of the operation, I leave. Am I a criminal? Oh, yeah, I think I am, because specific performance contracts are legitimate. Here's another example. I do a high wire act. I walk on a wire 100 feet up, and I hire you to hold a net under me. And in the middle of my act, you just walk away. And I think you're a criminal for violating the specific performance contract. And if I could, I might have a gun on my type wire, and I say, if you leave, I'll shoot you. And if you leave and I shoot you, I'm innocent. You're the bad guy. So I believe in voluntary slave contracts. Okay, here's another one. We libertarians believe that there are only negative obligations, negative rights. The right not to be murdered, the right not to be raped, the right not to be stolen from, the right not to be kidnapped. That's it. There are no positive obligations. There are no obligations to feed your starving neighbor. This is the way I see it, the essence of libertarianism. So here's the problem. The problem is the mother and the father, they come home from the hospital with a new baby, and they put the baby in his crib, and then they don't feed him. And the baby dies. Are they murderers? Well, they are absolutely, they're murderers. But the problem is that people will say, well, there are no positive obligations. Why do they have an obligation to feed the baby? Because once you allow positive obligations to feed babies, then you open the floodgates to welfare or anything else. So how do we get around this one? How do we sneakily evade this problem? The way we do, and here I call this bagel theory or donut theory, and Stephan Kinsella was kind enough to call it the Blockian Proviso. Where did he get the Blockian Proviso? He got it from the Lockean Proviso. John Locke. What was the Lockean Proviso? The Lockean Proviso was you can not immigrate. That's the next one on my list. You can mix your labor with the land. You can, and that's the way you get to own land, by mixing your labor with the land, cutting down a tree, putting in a crop, domesticating a cow, what have you. However, the proviso was that there has to be enough land for everybody else to get some land, and once there's very little land, the Lockean principle is canceled. Well, I'm not a fan of the Lockean Proviso, but I am a fan of the Blockian Proviso. So what's the Blockian Proviso? Picture in your mind a bullseye or a donut or a bagel. And in the middle, we call that area A. And then here is the bagel, and that's area B. And outside, it's area C. Can I use what do you call it, a screen? Does everyone get the idea? Bullseye, A in the middle, B for the bagel. So we don't need a screen. I mean, it's better to have the screen, but what the heck? Are you entitled to homestead in Area B? And we assume there are no helicopters, there are no bridges, there are no tunnels, and there's no pole vaulting or anything like that. Are you entitled to homestead in Area B? No. Why not? This is the proviso, because if you do, then you control Area A without ever having homesteaded Area A. You got that? If you homestead in the bagel format or the donut format, what about Area A right in the middle? Well, you control it. Nobody can get there because there are no bridges, there are no tunnels, there are no helicopters, there's no nothing, as we say in Brooklyn, no nothing. And you now control Area A, and you haven't homesteaded it. That's a violation of libertarianism. Libertarianism says you should only own and control area that you homesteaded. And here you're controlling area that you haven't homesteaded. Okay, now let me continue with this baby. What is, can you own your baby? No, you can't own your baby. You can own somebody, an adult who sells himself to you, yes, but you can't own a baby. The baby never sold himself to you. But what you can own is the guardianship rights over the baby. Now, with land, you can have absentee land ownership. You homestead the land and you go away for a year, you still own it. But with guardianship rights, you own the guardianship rights as long as you guard the baby. As soon as you stop guarding the baby, you're now in the position of ABC. You're now controlling the baby without homesteading the baby, without being the rightful guardian of the baby. Because in order to continue your guardianship rights of the baby, you have to keep guarding the baby. Well, how do you guard the baby? You diaper the baby and you feed the baby. And that's pretty much it for the baby. But by assumption, you're not doing that. You're starving the baby. You're leaving the baby in his crib and you're not feeding him and you're not diapering him and he dies. Well, you are doing what the bagel theory says you shouldn't be doing. Namely, you're controlling a baby illicitly because you're not guarding him anymore. So you have an obligation. Look, you don't have to feed the baby. We're not crazy here, we libertarians, but you have to keep guarding the baby if you want to be the owner of the guardianship rights of the baby. So you have an obligation to go to a church or I don't know, a police station or a hospital or places where they keep babies, an adoption organization, something. You have an obligation to take that baby and say, look, here, I can't keep the baby. You take the baby. But it's not a positive obligation. Do you see the point here? It's not a positive obligation. Rather, it is, I interpret it as not a positive obligation, but a attempt to get out from under violating the Blockian Proviso, namely being a criminal. People who homestead in the B bagel area are criminals. And the parents who now bring the baby to an adoption agency or a hospital or a fire department or whatever, they are trying to not be criminals. So it's not a positive obligation. So I think we can have our cake and eat it. We can save the baby on the one hand, and on the other hand, we don't have to admit the, what do they call it? The camel under the tent or something like that. We don't have to violate the libertarian axiom of no positive obligations. Okay, my next one, how much time do I have? 45 minutes or an hour?
1 hour, including questions.
I'm sorry, I have one. Okay, and I've only done 20 minutes so far, so I can keep going because I want to leave time for discussion and dialogue and interaction. Okay, my next one is immigration. Now, I'm an open borders person. We shouldn't have any border patrol. We should have open immigration. However, some immigrants are murderers. Others are rapists. There are bad people out there. We don't want bad people that be coming into our country. Libertarianism is not a suicide pact. so we have to have our cake and eat it. We want to keep open borders, and we don't want rapists and murderers. Okay, so here's the situation. I don't know about the geography of South Africa. You'll pardon me, but I know the geography of the United States. And somebody comes to the United States, say from Mars, a nice Martian, and he starts homesteading, and he's homesteading areas that never has been touched by human hands or feet. Somewhere in the middle of the Rocky Mountains in Wyoming or in the middle of Alaska, just empty land, and he starts homesteading there. And now along comes the border guard, ICE, ICE in the US. They're the ones that are kicking illegal immigrants out. And the ICE guy comes up to the marcher and he says, "What are you doing?" He says, "Oh, I'm homesteading." And then he says, "Well, you're violating the immigration code because you have to get permission from the government to come and be an immigrant." And he says, "Well, I hear you, but what libertarian law am I violating?" And there is no libertarian law that he's violating because it's empty territory. And if we're Lockean homesteading theorists, we believe that, some people say never suffer a witch to live. We libertarians say never suffer empty territory to be unowned. Namely, the goal of libertarianism is private property here and there. My motto is, if it moves, privatize it. If it doesn't move, privatize it. And everything either moves or doesn't move, so we privatize everything. So this guy, he's not violating any law. So he has a right to be there. On the other hand, we don't want murderers and rapists. So how are we going to solve this problem? The way we're going to solve this problem is we're going to privatize every square inch of the country. Now, I have 4 books out on privatization. One is why we should privatize everything. Another is why we should privatize roads, because in the United States, 40,000 people die on the public highways, and I give reasons why this would be radically reduced if all the roads were privately owned and competed with each other. My 3rd book in this series is why we should privatize rivers, oceans, and lakes. Mississippi River should be privatized. We had Katrina in 2005. 1,900 people died. Why? Because the Army Corps of Engineers put levees on Mississippi River, and New Orleans is right near the Mississippi River, and we're a little below sea level, and the levees fell. Now, this is a horrible thing from a humanistic point of view. But from the point of economics, what's really rankles is not so much that people died, it's that the same people are now still in business. The Army Corps of Engineers is still running the Mississippi River. So we got to privatize it. And we got to privatize the oceans because of the tragedy of the commons. We're going to lose the whales and the fish. So and the 4th one is we should privatize space, not only the moon and the Mars, but also the space race. What's his name? Musk. When the NASA was in charge of space exploration, they would send up a rocket ship, and the rocket ship would come down, and the rocket ship would be destroyed. Should I shut up? Am I going over my time? What should I do?
Hello, Walter. This is Leon.
Hi.
It's just that the time, according to we somehow didn't have a contract for this. So if you cut off, we must just reconnect. I'm not sure how this is happening, but it's it.
Okay.
A few minutes to go, but just carry on. Just carry on.
I'll keep going until I'm told not to. I'm an obedient person. Oh, right. Imagine if you took an airplane trip from South Africa to where I am now in Seattle, and then they had to throw away the airplane. Can you imagine how expensive air travel would be? Well, Musk came up with an idea of how we should save the rocket ships, reuse them. Okay, so we should privatize every square inch, including the water, the land, everything. And now, if somebody comes in without permission, he's a trespasser. So hopefully we can, again, square the circle or have our cake and eat it. We can adhere to open borders and also not be vulnerable to maniacs coming in and immigrating. And also another controversial point is that if you invite somebody who turns out to be a murderer or rapist, you're not a murderer or rapist, but you are somewhat responsible for inviting him in. Now, the objection to that is, well, suppose you have a child, and the child, when he becomes 15, starts killing people or raping people. Well, there's a disanalogy here, because when you had a child, you didn't know what you were going to get. Whereas when you invite somebody from a certain area of the world where they're known for raping and killing, and you invite him and he does that, well, I think there's a disanalogy there. Okay, my next topic is, what's my next topic? I'm running out of, oh, Israel. Israel is another controversial area in among libertarians. I'm very pro-Israel. I think Israel is in the right, but I've been excommunicated or what's the word, canceled from the Mises Institute, from the Ron Paul Institute, from antiwar.com, from the Future of Freedom Foundation, and Liberty Institute, and several others that I forget. Why? Because I apply libertarian theory to the Israel-Gaza war, and they don't like it, which is very strange. Now, look, I believe in free association. Nobody should be compelled to associate with anyone against their will. If these groups don't like my views on Israel, okay, they can have nothing to do with me. What really rankles is that several of them have been friends of mine for 40 years. Hans Hoppe, Tom DiLorenzo, Lou Rockwell, they won't speak to me anymore. I mean, I find that astounding, just on a personal level, not a libertarian level, but, we're not only libertarians, we're also ordinary people. So I find no problem with them disassociating with me, even though I'm still an Austro-libertarian on other issues, and I'd stick to those issues. They have every right to disassociate with me. But they also put it out that they're scholars. And scholars don't act that way. We used to make fun of the left for canceling people if you use the wrong pronoun. Well, now we have cancellation, excommunication in the libertarian movement. And I find that problematic because not only are we legal theorists, but we're also scholars. And how do scholars interact? Well, they argue, they debate. Hans Hoppe, in particular, a friend of mine for 40 years, no longer speaks to me, has done more good work on grounding libertarianism in argumentum ethics, the argument from argument, than anyone else. But he refuses to argue with me. He refuses to public debate with me, and I regard that as cowardice on his part and non-scholarly behavior. Okay, so let me get into what's going on with Israel. I believe in John Locke's homestead theory, and whoever was there first is the rightful owner. Well, when were the Jews in the areas that are contested? Gaza, the West Bank, Samaria, Judea, Lebanon, those areas, the Middle East. When were they there? Almost 4,000 years ago, 3,800 years ago. People differ as to how many years. Well, when were the Muslims there? Well, the Muslims didn't start until about 700 years ago. So they're Johnny-come-latelys. They only came a couple of centuries ago. What proof do I have for this? Well, one bit of proof is that the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the third most important mosque in the Muslim religion, sits above the Jewish temple, the Jewish Second Temple, and below that is the first Jewish temple. Well, when you try to figure out who was there first, the people who are lowest are the ones who were there first. The people who were on the top are the ones who came late. So this shows that the Jews were there first. Now, some people say, well, okay, we'll give you that, 20 acres of the mosque or whatever it is, 10 acres, fine. Do you know what the national sport is in America? It's football. The national sport in Canada is hockey. The national sport in most other countries is soccer. Do you know what the national sport is in Israel? Archaeology. The Jews are a bunch of nerds, and they're always digging and looking for stuff. And in the first few feet down, they find Arab stuff. cloth, coins, jewelry, whatever. But then they go a little deeper and they find Jewish stuff all over the place. There have been hundreds and hundreds of excavations, which shows that the Jews were there first. So if there's a dispute as to who owns the property, I think the Jews are in the right. They were there first. They're the rightful owners. It's true they were kicked out. The Romans kicked them out. The Ottomans kicked them out. The British tried to kick them out. But just because you get kicked out and you have a diaspora and you're all over the place doesn't mean you're not the rightful owners. Now, I'm assuming, I think most people assume this, that parents give their property to their children and then the children give it to the grandchildren. So if the Jews were there first, the present day Jews are the rightful owners. So if there's a dispute over the property, the Jews are in the right and the people who came afterward are trespassers. Now, what happened in 1948? What happened in 1948 is 5 Arab armies invaded Israel. Israel has been in many wars, but it's never the aggressor. By the way, antiwar.com is mislabeled. We libertarians are not anti-war. We're only anti-offensive war. We favor defensive war. You know, in basketball, when the other team has the ball, the audience for the home team yells defense, defense. They know the difference between defense and offense. Libertarians don't know the difference between defense and offense because they're supposedly anti-war. Lou Rockwell on his Mises thing has something like peace and I don't know, justice and capitalism, but we don't favor peace. Paradoxically, we only favor peace if nobody's attacking us. We're not pacifists. Some are pacifists, but you don't have to be a pacifist to be a libertarian. So what happened in 1948? Before the 5 armies invaded, what they did is they sent out a message. And the message was to the Palestinians, the Arabs, get out, go away. Take a vacation. Get out of there. Why? Because we want to slaughter all the Jews. And if you're there, we have to distinguish you from them and we have to protect you. And it's a pain in the neck and it'll reduce our efficiency of slaughtering Jews. And the goal is to slaughter Jews. Who could deny that? That's eminently reasonable. So get out. And about 800,000 of them got out. At around the same time, in Egypt, in Lebanon, in Syria, Iraq, and all the other countries that had the armies attacking Israel, about 800,000 Jews also left those countries. They weren't cooperating with the enemy. They weren't committing that crime. They were just getting out because the pogroms were heating up because Israel just started and the Arabs took it out on the Jews. So about 800,000 Jews Jews from the Arab countries went to Israel. How did the Israelis treat them? Well, they integrated them into the society and the economy. And now when the war of the 1948 war was over and the Jews won, Israel won. And by the way, you know, we talk about self-defense agencies. In 1948, there really was no IDF. There really was no Israeli Defense Force. It was fought by Irgun and Palmach and Stern and all these other groups, which are sort of like the private defense agencies almost, sort of an aside. In any case, how did the Arabs treat the 800,000 Arabs who wanted to have the right of return? They put them in refugee camps to show how cruel Israel is. And now we get to the issue of, war crimes and genocide. War crimes and genocide are a very bad thing. You don't have to kill every member, but if you kill an appreciable, significant number of the gene pool of the other guys, you're committing genocide. So who's committing genocide in Israel? Not the Israelis. The Israelis, when they bomb a hospital, look, they have to bomb a hospital. They have to bomb a school. They have to bomb residential areas. Why? Because the Hamas puts rocket launchers in the middle of a hospital. And then they shoot stuff over, and they sort of go like this to the Israelis and say, ha ha, you can't stop us, because if you do, you'll be killing innocent people. And what do the Jews do? They send messages saying, we got to bomb the hospital or the school or whatever it is. Get out. Now, what army ever did that? Very, very few. Even the Nazis didn't do this. Even the Nazis didn't hide behind the women's skirts and children. The Hamas is hiding behind, they're using them as shields. Look, I now have my two children here. Here are my two children. Two cough drops. These are my children. And I'm now going to attack you guys with a knife. Where's my knife? Here's my knife. It's a pen. Don't worry. I'm not going to hurt you. And I'm Hamas, and you're the Jew. And I'll say, you dirty Jew, bunch of kikes, I'm going to kill you. And you have a gun. You're more powerful than I am. But if you stop me, you'll kill my children. These are my two children. These are cough drops. You have two choices. Let me kill you with my knife. There's my knife. And your children die too. Or you shoot me and you kill innocent people. What are you going to do? Are you going to commit suicide by letting me kill you? Death by cop or death by Hamas? If you're sensible, you shoot me. And my children die. Who is responsible for the death of my children? You or me? Come on, give me a break. I'm responsible for the death of my children because I put them right here on my on a snuggly, and now I'm attacking you. Well, that's what Hamas does. And then they start talking about, well, 60,000, 70,000, 80,000 innocent people died. Well, that's their numbers. Look, if Israel wanted to commit genocide, look, they beat Egypt in 67 in 6 days. How long would it take them to kill all 2 million of the Gazans? 6 hours, maybe 6 minutes, who knows? There's no genocide in that direction. The genocide is in the other direction. What they did in 2023 is they killed 1,200 people. Well, 1,200 people is enough to a significant number of people. And then they say, well, they were doing it because Gaza is an open-air prison. Well, look, the Jews left Gaza in 2005. And between 2005 and 2007, the Hamas and the PLO were fighting as to who would be the dictator, and Hamas won. And ever since 2007, Hamas was in total charge of Gaza. They had, in effect, a Palestinian state. And if they would, and they had a lot of money incoming to help them. And if they would have built hotels and desalinization plants and houses, Israel would have made them the Hong Kong of the Middle East. But instead, what do? They build tunnels and to hide from and to ship off suicide bombers. So if there's any, a genocide, and there is, it's on Hamas's side. The next claim is, well, Israel, and here's the next mayor of New York City, Mamdani, who says, well, Israel has a two-stage society, the Jews here and everyone else there. And that's true. There are certain things that Israel will do for Jews that it won't do for anyone else. For example, I'm Jewish, and if I went, and I had never been to Israel, but if I go there, I can become a citizen in about 5 minutes. Whereas if a Christian did that, or a Muslim, they wouldn't be allowed to be a Jew. So in some sense, the Arabs are secondary citizens. However, they're treated better in Israel than they would be treated in any other country. And how do I know that? By migration patterns. How do I know that East Germany was bad and West Germany was good? Migration patterns. People are trying to get out of East Germany into West Germany. How do I know that it was bad for black people in the 1930s in the US? Because the black people were moving north because of Jim Crow and lynching. So where are the migration patterns? Are any of these secondary citizens that Mamdani is so upset about, are they leaving? No, because they're treated better in Israel, even though as second-class citizens, than they would be treated in any other place. My favorite group on this is, what do they call it? Queers for Palestine. It's an actual group of homosexuals who support the Hamas. If a homosexual went to Gaza while Hamas is in charge, they'd be killed. Whereas in Israel, they have gay pride parades and they treat the people nicely. Many doctors in Israel are Arabs. Many lawyers, many professors, many, I don't know, they even have a political party. They have a political party in the Knesset, and they're treated very, very well. So this idea that the Jews are cruel and they have a secondary system, they're second-class citizens, is true in one sense, that the Jews are treated better, but in another sense, they're treated better there than in any other Arab country. Okay, well, I've gone on for, I don't know how long, almost an hour. No, 45 minutes. I've been going on too long.
Walter, we're about to run out of time. Can we take questions from?
Yes, not only questions, but objections. I'm willing to, I like to argue, fight, not physically. Sure, questions, comments. That's the most important part, and I apologize for going on too long.
Hi, Walter. Leon, thank you for that. Just two things. One is, by the way, the other person who was in favor of voluntary slavery was Walter Williams. I don't know if you're aware of that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He was a slavery contract advocate, yeah. And then on the question of abortion, I have friends, well-known South Africans, Dorrie and Les Wheel, and they fertilized eggs and took them out and put them and froze them and eventually got a volunteer mother.
Leon, let me interrupt you. I can hardly hear you. Is there any way you can turn up the volume?
I'll go up to the microphone here, which is probably better. Is that better for you now? Does
Much
that work better?
Much better. Sorry to interrupt, but I'm sure you'll forgive me for interrupting.
Okay, start again. Well, Walter Williams was an advocate of slavery contracts. Good. And Dorrie and Les Wheel have twins. Well, he's now died, but they have twins, which show that they were viable from the moment of conception. They had them in cryonically restored and then eventually put in a volunteer mother. So your eviction theory can work really from the moment of conception. It doesn't have to wait until weeks before birth. The infants are viable immediately on conception. I'm not saying that makes me for or against. I'm just saying that is biologically the case, and we have real people in South Africa like that, quite well-known people as it happens, who were viable from conception.
Thank you, Leon. Let me brag a little bit. Walter Williams and I are co-authors in an article on, what was it, discrimination against women or blacks, and we were saying that that's not why they have a lower wage, so I'm honored to be a co-author of his. I just wanted to mention one other thing. I talked about rape, but happily, most children are not the result of rape. They're the result of voluntary sexual intercourse. So the argument against me is, well, didn't you invite the fetus in? And the answer is no, you didn't invite the fetus in, because for there to be an invitation, there has to be an invitor and an invitee. And at the time of sexual intercourse, there is no two-stage cell, because that doesn't occur until the sperm hits the egg. But at the time of intercourse, it takes a while for the sperm to work his way up through the woman's body and interact with the egg. So there was no invitation, because you need an invitee, and there was no invitee at the time of sexual intercourse.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm Trevor Watkins. I am delighted to discuss with you the non-aggression principle, because I've had a problem with it for many years, and have developed a contrary principle, or a different one, called the harm consent rule. Now, my big problem with the non-aggression principle is it makes a whole bunch of things that we like to do incorrect. So, for example, if you follow the non-aggression principle directly, you can't play contact sports, because you will end up aggressing against somebody. You couldn't go into a boxing competition. You couldn't go into surgery, because the surgeon will almost certainly do you some harm, while trying to do some good. So the harm consent rule says do no harm without consent, not the non-aggression principle. Could you comment?
Yes. We're really just having a verbal dispute here. We're not disagreeing on anything substantive. You want to call it something different. And you have a good point. It's not totally unreasonable. I would object to it because it's so entrenched in libertarianism to call it the non-aggression principle. So it sort of weird people out. Not only in the case of boxing or in the case of an operation, but also in the case of sadomasochism. So I have to tell you my sadomasochistic joke. The sadomasochistic joke, you better laugh or I'll come get you with my knife. Here's my knife. The masochist says to the sadist, beat me. And the sadist says, no. I think I'll keep my day job and I won't go. I won't quit and try to become a professional comedian. But I don't. While we're talking about verbal disputes, I don't like the word harm, because we can harm each other in many ways. I compete with you in I don't know in a race. Or a football team, one team wins, the other team loses, the losing team is harmed. Or you and I both competing for the same woman to be our wife, and you win, well, you've harmed me. So I don't like the concept of harm as a bad thing, because we can harm each other in many ways. So that would be another verbal issue, because there's no disagreement. Everyone would agree that competition harms people, and that's quite all right. And I would just say that when there's a boxing match, it's not really aggression because it's agreed upon. But I take your point. I think it's an eminently reasonable point. Yes.
Hi, Walter. It's Maurice on this side.
Hi.
I just want to sketch a scenario for you. So if you have a viable fetus, so after 6 months, with a severe disability, but the baby will be born, but not a normal, it won't ever live a normal life. What is your view on that from a libertarian's perspective?
Well, remember I said that if you don't want to feed the baby, you take the baby to a hospital or an adoption agency or something like that. And now you have a malformed baby, a fetus that's malformed. The question is there anyone in the world that wants to take care of that baby? It's deformed, but it can live. Or I shouldn't say it. He is deformed. But he's a human being with great flaws. So I would say if there's any person on Earth that wants that baby, then you can't kill the baby. On the other hand, if nobody on Earth wants the baby, then you can let the baby die.
So you would not consider any quality of life in your argument?
Well, I am considering quality of life, and namely this malformed baby. And by the way, when we had, what was that drug? Thalidomide. Thalidomide, that's my usual case in attacking the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration. The FDA approved the thalidomide and it had birth defects. So that's, we should have, instead of licensing for food and drugs, we should have competing certification agencies. But take a thalidomide baby. It's got 4 arms or 1 arm or 2 heads. I mean, they're really weird things. It's a human. I keep calling it. He is a human being. And you have no right to kill a human being. It's murder. However, if no one else on Earth wants to take care of that baby, well, then the baby dies. But if there's one person who wants to take care of the baby, you have to give that child to that person.
I think then we need to start analyzing what makes a human.
Well, I think what makes a human, I mean, nobody denied that the thalidomide babies were human, right? They weren't cats or dogs or cows. They were human beings with malformations, and they were humans. And I'm pro-human. I think it's a crime to kill a human being. And on the other hand, if it's a baby and other people want to take care of the baby, that other person should have the baby.
Thank you. Thanks.
That would be my view. But thanks for the question. It's a good one.
What has become very obvious from these fabulous cases that you put forward to us tonight is that the law interferes, and maybe it's inappropriate to have a written fixed law that you can't go against, because that creates a dichotomy in circumstances like the many you've described to us tonight. But the thing is, if you don't have a law, then you open yourself up to another whole set of possibilities where anybody can do anything, and there's no oughtness. And so, do you think that libertarians should be the ones who instead of lawyers, using fixed principles, and then we could have the different Maltas in charge of these various issues? Or do you think, without having any guidelines that are written, that you, by writing one at all, you're just fixing it and you make it static? But the situations you've described are very mobile. Is law appropriate, given how many considerations have to be taken into account?
Well, could you step back just an inch or two, because I can't see you. Now I can see you better. Good.
Okay.
I, as a libertarian, think we should have laws. We should have a law against murder. We should have a law against theft, a law against rape, a law against trespass. Sure, I favor law. Maybe I'm misunderstanding you.
But it seems like quite a few of the issues are not actually issues of a definiteness. There's no finiteness to do not kill. There's no finite, because you've described so many situations in which the humanitarian option would make it necessary or whatever it is. So it's no longer clear. So law cannot be clear because of the various issues you describe are very real. So do you have a solution?
Well, I don't know about a solution, but I've got another scenario. And here, you see, what we libertarians want, we want two things. We want to stick to libertarian law, and we also want prosperity, and we don't want to have a suicide pact. So here's the following situation. The Martians, the evil Martians, send out an announcement that unless we kill the next person that walks outside this room, they blow up the whole Earth. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kill that person. And then I want you to have a ticker tape parade in my honor, and I want you to give me a medal because I saved the whole planet. The Martians say that the Earth is going to be like the asteroid belt. They did that once to the planet that used to be the asteroid belt, and we're going to be the asteroid belt, and everyone's going to die. Well, I'm a hero. I killed an innocent person. And now, as libertarians, what you have to do is execute me. And now the Martians send out another message. If you execute me, they'll blow up the world. So now we finally have a scenario where libertarian theory and common sense diverge. Libertarian theory and safeguarding human beings diverge. But notice how weird you have to get in order to puncture libertarianism. You have to come up with Martians who are all powerful and nasty, and they are determined to undermine libertarianism, and they can succeed. So we're vulnerable to that. I admit it. Under those circumstances, I would violate libertarianism. But you have to go way out on the branch of the tree to succeed in undermining libertarianism. Now, I don't know that I've answered your question, but I'm a professor. I'm not supposed to answer questions. If I don't understand what's going on and I don't have an answer, I have to change the subject. So I've changed the subject on you.
It's a movable feast, really, and One thing is, what you have shown us is that if you take something to its ridiculous extremes, it gives you an idea.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Walter. That was wonderful and really grateful that we managed to get our times lined up.
Oh, by the way, I have a criticism of the lady who just spoke. She said she talked about night. It's in the morning. I got up at 5 in the morning to do this. But
We are grateful.
thank you. My pleasure. It's an honor to be part of your meeting. Take care.
Okay, those of you who are going to the supper, it's in the